It's the weekly on the Blue Room. It is almost halfway through an international break. And lo and behold, we've just had a short discussion before we started recording this. Dan and Les are joining me tonight, by the way. We had a quick chat, and there was some grim looking faces when I said, "Is it a good reason why we should not be too bothered about having an international break? Is it a time where we prefer to be continuing to play our games after a win and a draw, which seems like a world-class record for us in the last couple of seasons, that we hadn't lost in a couple of games? 2-2 draw at Chelsea, which we'll talk about a little bit as well.
It's
But
three on the bounce, isn't it? Sorry, Dave.
it's what, mate? Sorry.
It's three unbeaten, isn't it? Didn't
What
we?
was, what was before
Forest.
Brentford? Oh, yeah,
Forest won
yeah,
it.
it is.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Forest,
three unbeaten.
Brentford, Chelsea.
Hey, man, I know a European charge when I see one.
Well, there's one thing I want to start with that's just before we get onto that and international break and how well we've played recently and stuff. It's the appointment, and I've got a feeling that I can't wait for Dan's response on this. But Roy Hodgson is the new Crystal Palace manager, or the renewed Crystal Palace manager, and I tweeted about this the other day, saying I can't believe that Palace fans will be too happy that a 75-year-old fella has come out of retirement to try and save them from what looks like, well, it is currently a relegation battle. Despite the fact that they're 12th in the league, I have to admit, when I saw that was going to happen after they sacked Patrick Vieira, firstly I thought, when he come in as manager now, Hodgson, I thought, well, seems pretty pointless sacking Vieira, firstly. But also for them to get him back in. There's no Palace fan, or there can't be many Palace fans that are happy about that, Dan.
I think it feels very much like a place setting, doesn't it? It feels like it's interim, isn't it? In
the summer, yeah.
In a way, we were in a very similar situation. If you think about it, we didn't act before the World Cup. We then had to act in a relatively quick way. And we could only really afford to appoint managers who were free and financially, as well as without jobs. So we ended up in a very similar situation where we didn't really have a lot to choose from. And I think with Palace, unfortunately, it looked like Vieira was going to get off to a good start. And, there's players in that team you look at and you'd expect a young, dynamic manager to sort of build around the likes of Elise and Eze and Tyreek Mitchell and Gay and stuff like that. And it's not gone well. I mean, they haven't won for eons. But Hodgson feels very much like a club that have looked around, probably don't have a load of money to pick someone out of a club, probably don't have the kind of leverage to go and get someone, to go and get the guy from West Brom, to go and get a Kieran McKenna from Ipswich, Stephen Schumacher from Plymouth, whoever is a young, bright, exciting manager. They probably don't have that ability to go and get them. So they're probably looking at the league right now with 10 games to go and saying, right, if Roy gets us a point a game on average, we'll probably stay up. And then we'll go again in the summer and hope that we're still in the league. We don't lose a lot of this young talent. And at least with someone like Hodgson, you are going to get a sort of very pragmatic way of managing the situation. Also, realistically, he's probably just sitting on the end of a phone waiting for it anyway. And he'd probably do it whether he was 99 or 79. But I think, for our point of view, if we look at that, the next 8 of their 10 games are teams below and around them. So in reality, if they can pick a few points off of the teams around us as well, it's only going to be for the benefit potentially of us if we can just get our kind of point a game. Because Crystal Palace are going to have to do something. They're going to have to, if they pick points off of Southampton, if they pick points off of whoever they've got, that's helping us. I don't know whether, you hear the players really like Vieira. You hear that, he was very well liked there. Is it a panic? Yes. Is it the same sort of panic Burnley did last year when they got rid of Dyche with 8 games to go? Yes, I guess it is. It's that, right, let's do something. Let's try something. Burnley were 4 points adrift of us when they got rid of Dyche with 8 games to go. They finished the season with 25 goals or something. They thought that was the way of them getting out of it, and it didn't. And who knows? Palace could just implode now, couldn't they? It could just be, and as you were saying with the international break, I think it's similar with Spurs. I would have loved to have played them this Saturday.
That's a really interesting point on what's going on.
I would have loved to have played them this Saturday. Richarlison injured.
Yeah.
Conte losing his mind. Pierre Højbjerg coming out today and saying, well, we don't really know what the hell he's talking about. He hasn't told us what the problem is. Complete and utter chaos. Unfortunately, I think they'll go and get someone in the time
between now and a week on Monday, and they'll be great by the time they play us. That would tend to feel like it was our way, wouldn't it? It's a bit of a, like you say there, it's a bomb waiting to explode, isn't it, with a couple of these teams? And Les, Palace, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've actually got a good mate who's a Palace fan, and he's sort of tearing his hair out with it, because when I spoke to him, said when he sacked Vieira, like, what do you think? And he's like, well, as he said, Dan, the players liked Vieira, the players hadn't down tools on him, and as he said to me, he'd gone through a tough run of games. As he said, Dan, they've got the teams below them now for pretty much the rest of the season. But even in that tough run of games, he'd taken points off Liverpool, Newcastle, Brighton, and United. So they picked up 4 points out of a lot of tough games there. I think it's mad what they've done.
Yeah.
Because although you can look at it objectively, can't you? And when people say to us, "Oh, what are you getting rid of that manager for?" and we're like, "Oh no, because he's shit and we really need to." You could think they're thinking the same, but it doesn't look like they are, because it's like Roy Hodgson. Yeah, he's a pragmatic manager, but he's not really well known for getting the best out of attacking talents, is he? Which they've got bundles of. So I mean, it could backfire on 2 counts. It could push away these attacking players if they're not getting utilised properly, and if they do go down, you could see a lot of players leaving that club. I think it's dragged them right back into it, which obviously it's great for us, because the more teams involved, the better, isn't it? The more chance you got out of it. Just thinking back then, Dan, to when you said about Burnley, I look at that table with 5 games to go, and it still terrifies me. It's like, how the hell did we get out of that? It's mad. We should have been down. So I mean, I know Lampard was terrible this season, but the back end of that season to get us out of that, it was a big collective effort from everyone, really, wasn't it? Just don't want to do it again.
I want to get onto that point a little bit in terms of the sort of similarities and differences that you see from when we were in this similar position last season, whether it feels worse now. I don't know. I mean, I constantly keep thinking about this when I look at the league table, and I think, do you know what? It seems like to feel a little bit more at ease, the fact that it's still in our own hands, whereas several times last season it wasn't. And that ridiculous victory that we ended up getting against Palace kept us up. If we hadn't won that game, we'd have gone, because it was Arsenal away, wasn't it? And that was it. That would have been us gone at that point. But just looking at Palace there, they haven't won since New Year's Eve in December. Yeah. It's a crazy run of results that they've had. They've played, you say, they played some of the big teams. But yeah, I mean, Dan was saying then about the games they've got left. The next 6 is Leicester at home, Leeds away, Southampton away, us at home, Wolves away, West Ham at home. They're the next 6, and they still have to play Bournemouth and Forest. So you're absolutely right, Dan. The only 2 they've got outside of a relegation battle are away to Tottenham and Fulham. What situation would you want to be in there that you have a list of opponents like that, who basically they're all 6-pointers, 8 out of the 10 are 6-pointers? Or would you rather be playing sides that are pretty close, mid-table ones? I'm talking about like the likes of Aston Villa, who that traditional feeling of, well, they'll be on the holidays well in advance of when the season finishes. What sort of side of the fence would you want to be on?
I think if I was Palace right now, that'd terrify me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I still look at the table and go, oh, they've got 2 games in hand on us. And stuff like that. I still look at,
it feels like everyone has every single week, don't it? Yeah. It feels like there's more.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's us in the shit if they win them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I was Palace and I looked at that, all that says to me is we've seen it the last 3 weeks. Look at all of us every Saturday. It's like my dad used to know this guy at work called Tommy. and he had, those bottle thick glasses, those like comical bottle thick glasses.
Yeah,
right?
opened his eyes huge, yeah.
And I remember I had to go around his house once to take something my dad had to give him around his house. And we lived in Torquay at the time. And he was a bit of a man ahead of his time genius.
Yeah.
Because there were 4 channels. They just started Channel 4, right? That's how old I am. Not that it shows. But they just started Channel 4. And my dad had sent Tommy round this thing because Tommy had 4 tellies stacked on top of each other. 1, 2, 3, 4. And he had 4 12-inch portable tellies. Les will know what I'm talking about with the old 12-inch portable.
With the little aerial on the back.
That's it, the little aerial, yeah.
Yeah.
I am so glad I'm 35 years old. I haven't got a fucking clue what you're talking about,
And he had 12 of them stacked on top of each other so he could watch all 4 channels at once, and he'd mute the ones he didn't want, right? Now, that's how I feel on Saturday.
Yeah.
Because I've actually got the Everton game muted. That's muted because I don't want that extra stress, right? I can't get my hands on Valium at the moment. So, and the rest is just this chaos of me watching all the other games. And if you're a Crystal Palace fan right now and you see that list of fixtures and you've just seen Southampton scrape, luckily, but I mean, that penalty was grim, but it's a draw, right? You've seen Bournemouth get the odd result. You've seen us get the odd draw. You've seen Leeds batter Wolves. You've seen all this stuff, and you're Palace, and you're looking at that. There is not an easy point in that list. There is not an easy point in that list of fixtures. They could quite easily get turned over by Southampton. They could quite easily get turned over by Leeds. They could quite, you know what I mean? It's like, so in a way, if I was Crystal Palace, I'd rather be playing pointless games against your Fulhams and Brightons, who are kind of, they're battling for stuff, but they won't be battling like these teams will. You know what I mean? And if I look at that list of fixtures for Palace, and it looks like the end is nigh. Because
would you not feel, though, Dan, sorry to interrupt you, but would you not feel like the first one that Hodgson's going to have is Leicester at home? From our point of view, I think I'd rather have them beating Leicester than Leicester beating them, because I think Leicester, they're one of the very few sides that are already below us.
Yeah.
I think, weirdly, if Leicester beat Palace, that could be literally like letting the air out of the balloon, in the sense that they could end up going, like that. You know what I mean? That could be the wheels off. I mean, they're already wobbly.
Yeah.
But as Les was saying, his mate is a Palace fan. I find it pretty baffling because I don't know what they play like. I don't watch them, so I don't know. And as Les said, people have said to us millions of times, I've had people say, why'd you get rid of him? Why'd you get rid of him? Why'd you get rid of him? It's like, well, we watch it. We know what it's like.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they've got an incredibly unique squad. I think, Les, when you were mentioning the situation they've got, some fantastic attacking talent. Zaha, who everybody still bangs on about, why on earth he's still there. I think he's probably wrecked his own career, hasn't he, by staying there for as long as he did, because he's certainly better. Not to put offence towards anyone listening from Crystal Palace, but he's certainly a better talent than what Palace have given and what Palace have been for that many years. But you look at Elise, you look at the midfielders, what they're able to. Even Schlupp comes on, and I look at him and think he's an incredibly talented player that they've got there. It's there's such a funny side to look at, but what I said there. Would you rather Leicester get a result there, or would you rather Palace beat Leicester? See, because I think where we're twixt in between is, if Leicester go and get a result, obviously a draw is the best thing that happens for us, I would imagine. But if you then look at Palace win that, they keep Leicester below us. Leicester win that, they drag Palace even further into the mire. So there's still 9 clubs within 5 points of going down.
Yeah, I think I'd seen Leicester get beat just because I really don't like Leicester. So,
Brendan Rodgers, is it?
It'd be funny to see them go, wouldn't it?
The amount of money they've paid out, and they won the league 6 years ago.
And you know what? I don't care about saying it would be funny to watch any club go, because objectively it will be hilarious for Everton to go. For anyone who doesn't support Everton, it will be the funniest thing ever for Everton to drop. And I can 100% see why, because it would just be unprecedented and just massive.
It would be a bigger story than whoever wins the league.
Oh God, yeah, definitely, because it's like
it's a founder member of the league getting relegated for the first time in 50 something odd years.
Yeah,
after spending half a billion quid.
After spending £500 million with a brand new stadium on the doorstep.
although we have been like terrible for longer than I care to remember. And we've just sort of drifted along. Like, I mean, Matt used to say this a lot, didn't he? We were just the most nothing club going. There was not really to enjoy. We'd win the games we expected to win. We'd get beaten to get beaten.
He always used to say that thing, Les, didn't he? He always used to say that thing when we used to sign players. I remember he said it to me, first of all, when we signed Luca Dean. Luca Dean came to Everton from Barcelona, like Mina did, like Gomez did. And he said, yeah, you can get excited about players like that, but also you need to look at yourself and think there's a reason why players end up at Everton. And that's the side we actually have been for so long.
Yeah, definitely. But the fact is, we are a huge club in the scheme of things, and we've just always been there. So I think the fact that if we weren't there, it would be dead weird for everyone, but objectively really funny for everyone else except us. The thing with Palace is, and the thing to just touch on something that Dan said before about watching all the games, I definitely had enough of that last season. Watching Burnley games, thinking I need a result out of this. It's not.
We're watching it again now.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing the same again.
There's just a lot more clubs involved. That's the difference.
Exactly. This season, it's pretty much impossible to avoid because half the division is in a relegation scrap. It's mad, and I think anyone from 11th up, it's Villa, isn't it? They're out of it really because I think Villa have got 6-7 points on Palace or something, haven't they?
I think they're 10 points clear of us.
Yeah.
But so, take all of that. Go on, sorry.
So I'm just saying though. So it doesn't really matter who gets results from where because they're all going to take points off each other. As you said, Dave, the good thing for us is it's now still in our hands. Improbably, I remember after the Bournemouth game and going into that World Cup break, thinking we were done. That was it.
Yeah.
I've thought that several times. Yeah,
definitely. That's us done. Southampton, we're gone. I was because I even said I was saying at the time we need to prepare for the Championship now because that's what's happening. We will end up there. We may as well make provisions for it now. Get ready for that to give us a best effort to coming back up. But amazingly, it's in our own hands, which is we just cliche there, but we just need to concentrate on our own results because I think. What the Chelsea game showed the weekend, we are capable of grinding out results now. When they went 1-0 up, I thought this ends 4-0. Then we pulled it back. It was like, okay, we might see this out now. Then when they scored again, it was like, oh fuck, we definitely get beat.
Yeah.
There's no way we were getting back into that. And we did. We've had a go at Dyche about the substitutions or lack of them. But he got it right on the day there. He threw Ellis Sims on, which is probably what we've been crying out for weeks. Off the bench, and it worked. So hopefully,
a thing that's gone under the radar a bit. It's Mikalenko's ball over the top to Decore.
Yeah.
The
Decore's touch has gone underrated as well because just because of the goal.
But you see Mikalenko. He takes the ball in the corner there, and it's a beautiful ball over the top.
I would be saying to Mikalenko now, though, look, this is what happens when you play it forward. Just do it more often. Just keep doing that.
Yeah.
Have someone near him who could pass the ball to him. Who knew that worked? But the point I wanted to make here before we carry on with the Everton chat about Chelsea and whatnot, there was a piece I was working at the BBC a few weeks ago, and it was Can Everton come back? This was a show that they did. It's well worth a watch if you get a chance to. I'm not really trying to plug it, but there we go. And the question was, can Everton come back? It wasn't meant in terms of can they stay in the Premier League. It was meant in general. Can Everton as a club in the modern day way the Premier League clubs are, the financial state that those above us are, and the way we've had an owner who's been like an idiot for us, can we come back from that? But it got me leading to thinking that when clubs behave, and I'm taking us as fans away from this, what I'm saying, but in theory, I think that, and many other people, neutral football club fans, would look at this and think, do you know what? Everton probably deserve to go down. Just the absolute pile of shite we've been for 7 years, and like I mentioned before, spending over £500 million. If we were to go down, our football club should be looking at themselves. And yet we're still sitting here, 9 months on from when, it's nearly a year on, isn't it, from when we stayed up just about by winning that Palace game on the second to last day of the season. And we all looked at each other, and the club allegedly all looked at each other, but it doesn't look like they did, and said, this can never happen again. There's no way we can get into this position again. Lo and behold, 12 months on, we're possibly in a worse position, given the fact that there's so many other clubs that could dump us down, not just one or two like Leeds and whoever else is around us. That frightens me a lot more than this time last season did. But, if the dreaded thing happened and we were to go, you can't look around and blame anyone else but the way in which it's been run, can you?
No, I just a couple of quick things on this must never happen again. We've said that after every last day escape we've had.
But did we go to it the season after, though, Les?
No, we didn't in Mike Walker's case.
I mean? This is why.
We booked it until November, didn't we?
Well, this is it, Dan. This is what I was saying. Yeah, I mean, this is why it feels much worse than anything else. And I know jokingly I was saying about you two guys being older than me, but do you remember anything that you've seen with the season that there's so many different teams that could still go? You couldn't pick the bottom three. I think a lot of people would say Bournemouth and Southampton are going to go, but they keep on showing little bits and pieces at times where you're thinking, oh, do you know what? These look like they've still got plenty of life left in them. Have you ever known a season where it's been like this?
No. Not right up to this, 10 games to go thing.
Yeah.
There's always been a team that gets cut adrift. By now,
there's
always a team that is on, 11 points, minus 40 goal difference.
Yeah.
Can't hit the barn to save their life. They're on their third manager. That kind of thing. There is.
Is that us? Is that us now?
It feels like that would normally have been us or Southampton.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
this season, you mean?
This season.
If Watford was still in the league, it would be them. But, but no, I mean, I think that's what makes this season so. The thing was, last season, it was terrifying, but there was an element of what was happening for the first time at the club, and unfortunately, they're expecting the fans to do it again. But there was this movement of positivity. And almost a sort of aggressive positivity that was like, we're going to get this done. And we also had a talismanic player. And this year we haven't got that. And talismanic players are great, but we had a genuine international talismanic player who was very good. And because you can have your blood and thunder bang on your chest talismanic players, but if they're a hod carrying clogger of a footballer, it don't mean shit. But we had I wouldn't say world class, but we had an international standard striker who dragged us through it, and he said he would. That was the mad thing. He said, I'll get us out of this, and he did. And even though it went down to that last but one, because we had that, and because it wasn't 8 teams in the same boat, it never felt like this. And this has such a fluctuating feeling because every week it changes. It's like this. You're out, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're in, you're out. You're 3 points clear, you're right in the bottom, you're up in and all it takes is for Southampton to string together 2 wins. All it takes is, and they can do that because they've got some decent, all it takes is for them to stick. Ward-Prowse gets tripped over 25 yards out, and we know what happens. So I think that's why it feels so incredibly edgy, is because we don't have a player we know we can count on. We look around us and there are game winners in all of those sides around us, that, whether we like it or not. Mm. Ward-Prowse is a game winner for them. They put that ball anywhere around that box and he can win the game for them, even if they've had 13% possession and faced 28 shots. If he gets a free kick, he can bang that in. And you look at Wolves, you look at Leeds full of pace, and, you look at the teams around us and you go, he's a game winner. He's a big game player. He can change the moment. He can do this. And our team currently feels a bit like a team, more of a team than it was 6 months ago, maybe 8 weeks ago, whatever. But I don't look at our team and go, match winner.
Yeah.
Game changer. I don't look at any of those players and go, game changer, match winner. Now, they have done that in the last few weeks, and fair play to them. but I can't see. You knew when you watched Richarlison go across that white line that there was a 70% chance that he would be involved in the most important moment in that match. And I look at Murray Gray and I go, "What? Oh, right, he's had 3 bad games, so this might be his one good one." You know what I mean? And stuff like that. So I think that's what ramps up the pressure. Is it's not just us and 2 teams; it's us and 6 teams, and everybody else around us has the ability to get the odd fluky win. You know, and it's chaos. It's utter chaos.
You've just taken me back to 93, 94 there, Dan. Every weekend for the rest of the season is going to be like the final day of the 93, 94 season. I don't know if anyone's... do you remember the match of the day?
Yeah.
That final weekend where they showed the games like as it happened.
As it happened,
in the relegation zone. Then we were in the relegation zone till about 10 minutes till the end of the season.
Yeah.
But just looking at that table now, Swindon cut adrift on 30. Then you had Oldham in 21st. Oldham were in 21st on 40 points. Tottenham finished 15th on 45.
That is similar to these days then, isn't it, in terms of points?
United finished on 42. 20th, last team to get relegated. So there was 3 points between Spurs and 15 and the last relegation places, and only 5 between 15 and the second last relegation place. So I think every weekend is going to be like the final day of that season, where it's going to be chopping and changing every single week. I don't think anyone's going to pull themselves out of it. And I think it is going to go down to the wire. It'd be very exciting, like, bloody hell, can do without it.
But Bournemouth at home, mate. I just don't know. It's like
can't go
you're thinking.
That.
Well, like you look at what have we got last 10 games left, and you look at Bournemouth at home. You're thinking that's the one I'd feel most confident about playing at home. But with your bollocks on your own line, and you have to win this. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know that the squad that we've got have got enough players in them who've got those bollocks in their own hands. You know what I mean? And they're ready to throw them to somebody else and send us down.
If we need to beat Bournemouth, can we get Umar Niasse back from Fleetwood?
He's going to be flying in, mate, isn't he? Just on this side, though, because we'll change over to a couple of other things I want to speak to you about. But how many points? Because I had a chat with Paul and Simon on the weekly, the early weekly on Monday, and they were saying they reckon 34 points will be enough to stay up, and I could not believe that. And maybe that is because I'm looking at this thinking, well, there's too many teams here to say that you think 34 is going to be enough to keep you above 3 others. And in our case, it means what? 8 more points.
Yeah.
I look at those last 10 games, I'm thinking, well, pissies, you get 8 more points, 3 wins, or 2 wins and 3 draws. I think, yeah, that'll keep us up. I said my answer was 30. I think you need 37 to stay up. And given that long list, 5 points between 9 sides, if someone were to offer you, certainly not 34, someone to offer you 37 now, would you take it?
Yeah.
You take 37.
I think a point a game will keep us up. So that's 36 points.
So
you're going 36. Les, what do you think?
I don't know. This will just stress me out thinking about this now. I can never work shit like this out. I'm looking at it now.
Les, I've been that sad in recent days that I've been looking at every single club that is in the bottom 9 and seeing what the games are. And this thing, again, working at the BBC, this thing comes out shortly, doesn't it? Where everyone needs to predict the results all the way to the end of the season. You get what the table looks like. I think I'll be on that for about 9 or 10 hours every single day, just working things out with that. It'll go that deep. I'll be looking at players available, who's on a yellow card. Looking at Mitrovic at Fulham, who've they got to play? They've still got to come to us. Does that mean he's not going to play? He's obviously not going to play now, is he? Because he's gone to shit with what he did with the referee. But every single opponent we have, Les, I'm looking at each one thinking, what's the feeling that I've had towards them? Have we had any shit with them? So I'm thinking, when Fulham come to us, they've got Silva as manager. What happens there? What are the things that are going to come from that? Because it's Silva coming back. I'm just going absolutely crazy about what I think. But yeah, I've stuck with 37. What do you think?
I think it's time to reinvoke the gentleman's agreement with Fulham. That we lose down there, but we win up here. Oh, do
you remember that? It was just like opposite wins. It was a nice agreement.
We should do that with more clubs. Yeah, I don't know. I think,
Give me a number, let's stop dancing around.
It's got to be below. Oh, fuck it. 38 then. No, 38 I'm going to say. I don't know.
Well, it's not. It's definitely not. It's
terrible
definitely.
I've no idea. One thing we have got to factor in, though, is the Ramadan water break for Everton.
Yeah.
Because our midfield could be goosed for the next month here when
all three of them, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That I mean, yeah, people are smile at that, and obviously they don't know that sort of religion side. That is actually a huge issue for clubs that have many players who do that. So you think about our midfield there, you're thinking, well, that means Tom Davies has got to start. That means you've got to bring in a couple of kids and throw them in the midfield and things like that. I mean, that's where things could go to shit, isn't it? So. You're saying 38, I'm saying 37. And what do you say you were, Dan?
Point a game, 36.
You're saying 36, 37, 38. The other thing that I want to... I'm sorry. Anyone who's listening to the second part of this podcast here, we've just been drifting aside with some really strange pictures that Dan might explain to you on Twitter if you want to message him or DM in about what he's sent to me and Les there. It's highly inappropriate for everything apart from the mailbag. So if you're not a fan of that, I've never listened to that before, give it a go, and then you might see what makes sense when you see these pictures that he sent us this evening and what he does with his spare time. But that's that's nothing for now. What I want to move on to, aside from us talking about the nerves and points and teams we've got to play and fixtures that are coming up, it'd be silly not to talk about what happened to Chelsea and how we come about getting 2 points. And you mentioned that Dan Olaperi has mentioned it about Mykolenko playing that ball into Decore, and I think that lad's been highly criticised, hasn't he, Mykolenko, about even getting a game really, and he was back in against Chelsea. Are you starting, I'll come to you first, Les, are you starting to see some of these lads, which you absolutely need to happen towards the end of the season when you're trying to stay up, a lot of these stepping up to the plate now? Because I made the point after Brentford that I thought that was probably the best game I've seen Idrissa Gueye have since he came back. Decore similarly too. You're talking about in Decore, and we've spoken about him a lot anyway, so you don't have to spend too much time on him, but somebody who's stepping up. And it annoys me so much when you see so many players do that when they've got a contract to play for. So he's looking to get an additional year with us. And I'm starting to see that in more and more players now. You think of how big Coleman's been for us in recent weeks. And for that reason, putting Mykolenko in there, saying that he's putting in a performance that's scored us a goal and got us a point. There's a few players in there that can say, you know what, that's largely to do with how high I did there. Is there any of them you look at and think, you know what, there's actually something in there from him to give us rather than be somebody you don't want to see in the 11, i.e. Michael Keane, probably the most controversial one to speak about, really. Why he's in the two centre-backs that we play.
Yeah, I think it's I think of a lot of it has just got to do with the manager.
Yeah,
previous and current, really. The fact that it's like the Southampton game, which is now infamous for Lampard coming out and saying this isn't about tactics or whatever he said. This is just about heart and fight. And it's like, well, it's not, mate, because these are shit and you should be able to beat them. I think it's clear from that there was no discernible plan from the manager, and it seems like there hadn't been since the back end of last season. Because we can't. I know he was hamstrung a bit by the fact that we sold Richarlison, we didn't replace him, we didn't sign a striker, we were relying on Calvert-Lewin, and he was injured. There were a lot of moving parts to everything that went wrong, but I think at the end of it, he didn't really seem to have much of a plan or much of a clue what he was doing with the team and the players. And it's it's odd because these are professional footballers, so you think they should just be able to go out and play football like Sunday League. You just get thrown on the pitch in a position and you just get on with it. But it's not like Sunday League. And it's like, teams will play to a system that the manager teaches them in the week. You stick to that system, you keep to it. And if that's not a good system that they're not comfortable with or they're not happy with, well, I don't think they're really particularly down tools for Lampard. He clearly couldn't play like he wanted them to. So you're seeing things like now, I think I mentioned it last time I was on the weekly, you're not getting the midfield getting the ball off the back four and just giving it them straight back. So these centre backs are basically your playmakers. We're not doing that anymore. It's passing through the midfield a bit more. It's going out wide down the wings a bit more. So I think it's just players are playing in a formation and a system that is being well drilled into them, and they can play in. And then I think just as it goes on from that, they just naturally play better in that position. Now you could look at it cynically and say, Decore's after a new deal with the club, which he might be, but there's nothing to say he couldn't get more money if he went somewhere else. I know he's on a big deal, and he
Do you know what about he's on, Les? Because the amount of people I've seen say, "Oh, he's on at 100k." There's no way. There's no way.
100 grand.
Is
it's
it?
Nearly, it's 80, 90 grand a week. Yeah,
that's astonishing. But then, like we were referring to before, we've spent and wasted. So I say wasted in inverted commas with him because he obviously looks like he's becoming a real attribute for us in the race to stay up. But that's a hell of a lot of money on a player that we want to get rid of for a very, very long time.
Even just going back to sort of the players playing better, and the sort of elephant in the room being Michael Keane. An elephant's probably more mobile, but there we go. I think I actually like Michael Keane anyway. I just think he's good at Michael Keane things. So he's good at a head and a clear, and he's good at getting his body in the line. He's
but not passing the ball away with his left foot.
Yeah, he's maybe not so good at doing clearances with his feet. I remember he did one against Brighton last year, didn't he, where he kicked it straight to their player as well. Pretty similar to the one against Chelsea. But I can see why Dyche has put him in with Tarkowski, because he knows he's going to get a run of games from him. So you can say Mina's the best defender of the club if you want to say. You can say the defence is better. He's a problem up at both ends, but you're not going to get a run of games out of him. So there's no point dropping him in and taking him out and not being able to rely on him, thinking 60 minutes in, you waste a substitute on him because he's injured. He's looking at that thinking he wants partnerships across the team. And that's kind of what he's getting. He's building up partnerships. We're playing a consistent 11 pretty much. And we're getting these partnerships across the team, which is really, really important when you've got a system you want to play to and you want everyone to buy into that. So I can see why Michael Keane's in there. And as I said, he does Michael Keane things well. And if that's all you ask of him, 90% of the time he's all right. But there is that odd thing like that clearance against Chelsea that was, piss poor and led to their goal. But I think it's just playing percentages with them, isn't it? And thinking, if I can get Keane and Tarkowski in a decent, solid partnership, I'd take that over having Yerry Mina for 3 out of 10 games or something like that. So I can see where he's coming from, and I think it's just the players having a system that they're comfortable with that's probably bringing the best out of them at the minute. That's my thoughts on it anyway.
Well, just before I get your answer to that, Dan, I was talking to the lads on Monday's show, on Subs Weekly, and I was discussing and debating about the two centre backs we should be using in there. I think a lot of people have said, a lot of people have spoken to, a lot of people that have seen on social media have said, or haven't said, which probably gives him their voting confidence. Tarkowski very rarely gets questioned. Yes, I think in the last couple of weeks he's been a little bit susceptible to certain things that have happened. And to the same note, Cody doesn't look like he's going to continue his time at Everton, when I think if you go back even as soon as a month, 6 weeks ago, I think many fans, a high percentage of fans, would be looking, thinking, "Well, it's easy money for us that to go and pay no more than 6 to 8 million for him." He's a centre back. Yes, he's in his 30s, but he's the type of player that's not quick anyway. So he's a centre back that will last a long time. He's out in the cold now, but it's Michael Keane that's in there. And Les just described there about Mina. I wouldn't even let Holgate in the front door, to be honest with you, to play in any position for us. So do you look at that and see the logic of a Keane-Tarkowski partnership without going too far down the road that you think, well, he knows these two from when he was at Burnley? Because I think that is a completely separate thing that you can look at here, because Burnley was stuck with having those two and no further options. I wouldn't go as simplistic as to say Dyche is picking these two because they're who he trusted when he was at Burnley. I think there's something else in there, i.e. the other two that he could put in aren't anywhere near as good as these two. What's your take in that?
I think, you see, I've had to sort of change the way I feel about this the last couple of weeks. I spoke to Matt a few weeks ago on here, And I was worrying about all sorts of permutations of how this was going. And Matt was like, well, we can't really worry about that now, can we? Because we have to get this job done first, and this has to be done first, and all this. And, I think what I've done now is made my peace with certain parts of how this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And if he believes that Akin Tarkowski for the next 10 games is how he believes it's going to get the best out of what we need to do, I think it's pretty obvious. Ben Godfrey's an athlete. He's not necessarily a great footballer. I think he offers a physical presence. He's clearly a half-decent leader as well on the pitch. But when he plays left back, he's not very well balanced, and we saw what happened with the penalty and all that sort of stuff. But I think the midfield works. It doesn't necessarily work perfectly because we're still conceding lots of goals. Potentially, Tarkowski's had to block 7 shots at the weekend, which tells you that no one's really protecting that back four particularly well. Because I think that was the best shots blocked in Europe at the weekend, with Tarkowski blocking 7 shots. I think they had 20-odd shots in the end, which shows you that the midfield may be doing certain parts of their job properly, but it's not protecting the back four in any real way. I think if he thinks that playing Gray up front for the next 10 games and bringing Ellis Sims on with 20 minutes to go when the defenders are tired and they don't want that physical presence, if that works, great. And I've just got to the point now where I look at that team. There are parts of it that I would change in a heartbeat. There are parts of it I never want to see again. There are parts of it, if they weren't at this football club, it wouldn't break my heart in any way, shape or form. Certain players that will go unnamed. I've had my unfollowers in the last couple of weeks because of my opinion on certain things. I've lost quite a lot of followers because I tend to tweet during games. I'm not one of these people with the emotional or intellectual intelligence or whatever to not speak while the game's on. I'm not one of those people that goes, see, turned out all right in the end. I'm the person at 2-1 going, he's useless.
I think the name of them is called shitbags.
I'm not one of those people that can hold it in. But I've got to the point now where I've made my peace with the fact that if this is what he has to do, if one of Dyche's million, cliche parody mantras of, perspiration, not inspiration, if that ends up saving us, then we just have to admit that that's how it had to be done. There's no way we're getting out of this playing nice football. There's no way we're getting out of this by beating teams 3-0. There's no way we're getting out of this any other way than what we saw on the weekend, which is a resilient team ethic that might get us a 1-0 win. It might scrape us a draw. We are not going to be beating people 2-3-0. It will be 1-0 wins or 1-2-1, 1-1 draws thing, because that's what we're capable of. We haven't got a bloke we can chuck on with 20 minutes who's going to win us it. It may happen. Fingers crossed it does. But I look at that team and I go, if Keenan Tarkowski's it, if the Bistow twins are what we've got, the Bistow twins is what we've got, right? If he decides to play Godfrey and every now and again Mikalenko comes on, great. If he's going to drive Seamus Coleman into dust by making him play every single game, we know he will do it. We know that man would drag his genitals over broken glass to save this team. So, and if, Wobie's been quiet for the last couple of weeks, but maybe that's because there are people around him doing their jobs for once, and it's not just him having to run around like a headless chicken. If Decore gets a year's extension, but he scores another 3 goals and keeps us up, okay, we have to live with it. If it blocks the pathway of a very good academy player, then that's the position we've put ourselves in. If we end up selling Jared Branthwaite and Sean Dyche decides that money's going to go wholeheartedly on Chris Wood, then that's the medicine we have to swallow. Because this is where we've put ourselves. Not us, not the fans, but this is where the leadership of this club has put us. It has put us in a position with 10 games to go where if we score another 6 goals and it wins us another 10 points and all those goals come off of someone's face, we don't care. I don't care. I don't, and I just think we are now at the point where any win is a win, any point is a point. At the weekend, when that goal goes in, I didn't do anything. I just stood there like that. I was like, is that good? Is that bad? is that a rescued point? Is that a game that we were actually pretty dire in, but we've battled? And then I see the reactions from the fans and the reactions from the team, and you see Onana mouthing that stuff as the crowd are going, the away fans and stuff, and you think, okay, there's enough here to buy into this.
Yeah.
There's enough here to say, okay, I'm in. Let's see where the chips end up, and if it ends up with me with a little tiny Sean Dyche tattoo in a gap on my leg, then so be it. Bring it on. I've got a perfect little spot for the Kettering ginger god, and he is going.
Yeah, that'll be paid and filmed as well. Don't worry about that. Les, obviously, give us your views on that. What I asked about with the centre back pairing, which you sort of have already anyway. But to move this on a little bit, is about Ellis Sims. Now, I mean, I've been reluctant to say that there's a lot of dilemmas that Dyche has here in terms of his first 11 selections, because I think the natural thing for many fans, I think certainly a lot of younger fans, not to speak for them, but they'd be encouraging Ellis Sims to be the one that starts up front for us, not just because of the goal, but because we don't really have any other striker available at the moment. Gray's been playing up there and done a decent job. Calvert-Lewin, I mean, the amount of shit that goes at him on social media as well is quite outrageous. And I think, if we were to see him back in the next 4 or 5 games, that would be a bonus, I think, because he's still our number 9 and our natural striker. But how far would you go to simply saying now, well, Ellis Sims has gone to one of the most difficult away games in the Premier League, banged a fantastic goal that all of us have raved about, and if you, like me, watched it about 400 times. I still can't see a way right now where I'd throw him straight in. No. A home to Spurs, a lot of people would say, well, he's got Goodison behind him and things like that. I think maybe a little bit more ironic. I'd like to see him away from home more than thrown in at Goodison, simply because that'll be a really difficult spell for him, a difficult arena for him to kick as good as he did when we were away at Chelsea. I think that suits him fine to come in. I think you mentioned it, last 20 minutes or so, you put him in there if you need an equaliser, or you desperately need to change things up, get Gray off or put him in a different, whatever it is, him getting on. But there is always a knee-jerk reaction for like that sort of goal he scores, and always a lot of clamour to get him in straight away. I don't think we should be anywhere near that yet.
No, not at all. I think you use him as the impact sub now, last half an hour, maybe. If you look at that goal at the weekend, he starts that game, he doesn't score that against Koulibaly.
Yeah.
He's come on there fresh. Koulibaly's goosed because I think he played pretty well that game. Nothing really got past him. And he's used that to his advantage. I'm not making any excuses. It was a great goal, but I don't think he gets to do that to Koulibaly earlier in the game. We saw at Anfield as well. He had a sort of chance to try and beat a man early on, but it was too much throwing him into that game to start, and he was so sort of taken in by the occasion and stuff. I guess he just lashed the shot at their defender straight away. Now it was in a similar position, not quite as good a ball on the run, but it was in a similar position to the goal he scored at Chelsea, where he then took it past the player because he knew he could. So I think still bringing him on in a game where the defenders are getting a little bit tired, he can use his strength and his pace to get past them then. I think that's a much better position for him, and to not give him the pressure of having to start a game and carry the team right from the start. I think Damari Gray's doing a decent job of that at the minute. I think he's giving defenders enough to think about. He's pulling out wide. He's getting back in the middle. I think he's doing okay in that position at the minute. Obviously, if Calvert-Lewin comes back, he goes in. But no, I think let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's keep using him as that impact sub.
Well, the other side of that as well, Dan, is you're in a pretty difficult scenario anyway. If you're a manager looking at this, when you've got to get the amount of points you need to stay in the Premier League, throwing in a young lad and trying to get him into this sort of level he needs to be at in a Premier League side is difficult enough when you're a mid-table side or a side that's doing well in a season, to put that pressure on him. And I think we felt a bit of that, like Les mentioned there, about the derby at Anfield. I remember just, again, on social, and a lot of people saying, who's this? Why is he even getting a game? He looks shit and all this stuff. But I think that's proven when he's come on and done that against Chelsea. That there's a specific time for him to get game time, but it's certainly not starting straight away.
No, I think, as Les said, we've, as a football club, we've unfortunately produced quite a lot of talent, academy-wise. And unfortunately, because of the team we are, and we've never been afforded the kind of luxury that the better teams have, which is you're playing well, you're winning every week, there's momentum, there's whatever, and you can phase talent in because it's not going to be overwhelmed by a team in a relegation battle or a team in slogging it out, away from home, 2-0 down, whatever, So a lot of our talent, a lot of our youth ability has fallen by the wayside, other than being intensely mismanaged, sent out on terrible loans, or been put through an absolute, washing machine of managers. And you look at Ellis Sims, you think when you see him, he's a unit, but the kid's, in his early 20s, he's not 16, he's not 17, he's 22, 23 now. And his loans have worked, and he's scored everywhere he's gone, been very well liked, but he's very much a player that likes to run in on the channel and play off the shoulder rather than he's not a target man. He's not going to hold the ball up or anything like that. He loves that kind of ball. That ball from Decore, you look at all his goals from Sunderland and Hearts and Blackpool, and it's that stuff. It's him on the run, on the shoulder, and balls going through to him and him running onto them. And he knows where he's a pretty decent finisher. So I'd be using him exactly like Les said. I'd be letting Gray run the defenders into the ground and then giving him the last 10, 15, 20 minutes to come on and bully people and be an unknown property, be someone that no one they're like, I've never, hang on, who's this? He's got amazing hair. He looks like, I've got an extensive jazz record collection, and I'm sitting in the room that is currently in my house known as the Jazz Den. It's where I lock myself away and play avant-garde jazz that makes my wife's head hurt. And most of the time makes her think I'm having some sort of massive breakdown. Oh God, he's gone in the room and all he's like, like that. But I've got album covers with men on the front that look like Ellis Sims. He's a statuesque, wonderful-looking gentleman with the most incredible hair. And I just think if we can use him as this unknown impact, not battering ram, I think that's a bit unfair on the lad. I think he's got a good finisher. He finishes very well, probably a lot more technically clinical than Mr. Mopé. But I think that's the perfect way to use him. Let everybody else drive the defenders into the ground. Let them get defenders turning and running. Let the game stretch. And then hit that, you saw it at the weekend. It's a decent ball into midfield. It's a one-touch pass into a channel, and he's on his toes and he's in. It's not the cleanest of finishes, but it's in the right place. It's under the keeper, and he clearly knows where to be. That's the other thing. Neil Mopé never looks like he knows where to be. He never, the ball comes flashing across the box, and you're like, well, where is he? And he doesn't seem to have that intuitive striker compass, that leads you to places.
Yeah. And
Ellis Sims looks like a player who has that intuitive drift movement where he goes, oh, I'm there now. And I'm in that, that position he took at the weekend. That's intuitive. That's a player sitting on the striker, sitting on the defender, on the line, right on the line. And when that ball comes, he's off. He doesn't need to be lightning quick. All he needs to do is get that toe in front, and then he just, barges him off the ball, and it's a calm finish. He opens his body up and he puts it away lovely. So I hope we see him do a bit more of that. And even if it's just causing chaos in the box for the last 10 minutes, just banging it into him and in crosses, corners, whatever it is, just he's a very physical, unknown quantity. And I think with him, Onana, Decore, it's the old-fashioned put it in the mixer, isn't it? That's all we can do.
Yeah.
And Dwight McNeil's crossing in the last couple of weeks has been pretty good. His corner delivery has been something we've not seen as Everton fans for a very long time. You know,
quickly on that Chelsea goal as well. If you watch it back, when it goes in, there's 2 Everton players following it and 1 Chelsea defender.
Yeah.
Which I've not seen that for a long time. It's usually you get in the box, there's no one there.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that even right at the end of the game, there was the clips earlier in the season, wasn't there, where the Corey was getting outrun by the referee and stuff like that. It's like we're past that now. That's gone. And just on Ellis Sims as well, he actually sounds like a jazz musician, Ellis Sims.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
I've not heard him talk.
No, it was just mean his name.
Ellis sorry, isn't it? Yeah, isn't it? Absolutely.
His middle name's Rico as well.
Well, listen, I was going to say
RECO, Rico, Ellis, Rico Sims. What a name!
Well, what a perfect note to end this show. Yeah. There it goes. Yeah, it's great to know that the lad's got a career if we do go down as well. It's absolutely brilliant. But thanks, lads. There's some places we ended up in I never really expected with these conversations, but absolutely brilliant. The one thing I want to finish with to tell everybody that's listening is let us know how many points we're going to need to stay up here, because there's been some outrageous shouts that earlier this week 2 people said there's going to be 34 points. I don't think that's any chance whatsoever to even finish 18th or 19th for that matter. We've all gone for 1 point between each other. So I've gone 37, Dan's gone 38 reluctantly, and Les has gone, what have you said, Les? 36?
38. I just pulled the number out the air, man.
Oh, there he goes. He's backing up already anyway. But to everyone that's listening, thanks very much. As always, there's bagfuls of stuff in our Patreon account if you want to take part in that and get involved in everything listening. And Les will be back on Friday. I think we're back to normal, are we, with mailbag as well, Les?
Yeah, on Friday. If anyone fancies it, let me know.
Make sure you don't miss on that. And the final thing I need to say is it is the WSL Merseyside Derby at Goodison on Friday. An amazing amount of tickets have already been sold, so I'm not sure there's going to be a sellout, but I think it'll be getting up towards that now. If you have a look on the club's website, there aren't many tickets left in the positions that you want to sit. I.e., I think there's some left on the paddock. Park End's completely sold out. Most of Gladys is completely sold out. You can only go to the upper Gladys for that as well. So get them quick, get down there, and if you see any of us there, say hello, and we'd be happy to have a chat and say hello and talk about the Blues, whatever it is you want to say. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back with another Subs Weekly tomorrow. And like I said, mailbag on Friday. Thanks for that.